77 WABC. 1, 2, 3. Sid Sports Sunday. Every Sunday. From the NJDiet.com studios. 77 WABC New York. A Cumulus station. This is Sid Sports Sunday. Driven by Ramsey Mazda. Sid Rosenberg. The stories, the stats, the edge.
From the corner. 17 seconds from Game 7 or from championship number 6. Jordan, open, Chicago with the lead. The Chicago Bulls have won their 6th NBA championship.
The moments.
Seats off to the Devils, plays it cross ice into the far corner. Matteau swoops in to intercept. Matteau behind the net, swings it in front. He scores! Matteau! Defend Matteau! And the Rangers have one more hell of a time, baby! But it's not Vancouver! The Rangers are headed to the finals!
This is Sid Sports Sunday, driven by Ramsey Mazda on 77 WABC. Now, Sid Rosenberg.
And a good Sunday morning, everybody, coming to you live as I do most weeks, unless I'm in Atlanta for the Super Bowl or Bayside, Queens. Live 17 floors above Madison Square Garden, the legendary Mecca home of the New York Knicks and their 13 wins in 66 tries, and the New York Rangers, who will also be left out of the playoffs this year. It is a Sid Sports Sunday here on 77 WABC, and as always, it's great to be with you. Got the all-star cast, the best executive producer in the business, Michael Gunzelman. Sober today, did not go out last night. Saturday night, no drinking, no broads, nothing. What happened, Guns? What's going on with you?
I don't know, but I can't get used to it.
I know, it's weird.
It's so weird.
I like a hungover Guns better. You're kind of quiet today, and of course, Bruce Clayton on the board does a tremendous job each and every week. You know, 2 weeks from today, I'm not going to be here. Because nobody in this business, and even Bernie will attest to this, nobody works harder than me. Nobody. Get my ass kicked, during the week between the Bernie and Sid show and the hours and hours I spend afterwards in meetings and client calls and sales calls and even taping stuff for this show. And then I show up on a Sunday. No one comes close. So I need some time off. Now, usually Russ Salzberg will host his show when I'm away, and he does a fantastic job. I mean, Russ has been in this business longer than I've been. He's really, really good. But maybe Guns will host in 2 weeks, right? I mean, breaks his ass every week for this show.
Let's do it up.
Trying to become a sports talk show host on a regular basis. You've been filling in for Tim McCarthy over at ESPN for a while now, right?
Yeah, definitely.
How many shows do you think you've done over there?
Probably about 13 or so.
13?
Yeah. Had Michael K. on, Stephen A. Some good guests.
Yeah. No, I think maybe you should do it in 2 weeks. I love Russ. Don't get me wrong. Russ will still help fill in on Bernie and Sid and all that stuff, but I want to give you the opportunity.
Appreciate that, man. Let's go.
I really don't care. I'll be on the beach somewhere, and I couldn't care who.
Your phone won't even be on. You won't get the phone calls.
If Elephant Boy hosted the show, I wouldn't care, but I feel like I need to give you an opportunity. So I'm going to tell Craig Schwab tomorrow, not ask. I'm going to tell him that you're hosting the show. So congratulations.
Thank you, baby. Appreciate it.
What are you going to talk about? Trump?
Definitely start with some Trump. Yeah. Maybe Cortez.
Yeah.
Ocasio-Cortez.
Well, it's funny you say that because, listen, I've been doing this a long time between sports and now the job I do with Bernie every single day. And I say this, people must think I say it just to say it, but it's not true. I really mean it. I love working with Bernie. Bernie is the easiest guy in the world to work with. First of all, we've been really, really close friends going on 20 years now. Close friends. I mean, when I was down in Miami and I had my trials and tribulations, I'd get a couple of calls out of New York City, a couple, always Bernie. And we always talked about working together, always. And we worked very hard together, along with the help of Chad Lopez and, Pete Morgan. You know the story. There were a lot of folks in this building, including Imus, who wanted Mike Lupica, not me and Bernie. But we always stuck together, Bernie and I. We always thought we'd get our chance, and we have. And now we've gotten even closer. And he's the best. He's got no ego, none. He trusts me, my instincts, my hosting ability. He must tell me 5 days a week that he's never worked with a more talented guy, and he means it, including Amos. So I love the guy to death. And I love the show we do. Look, I'm the guy outside of Bill O'Reilly Whether it's Anthony Scaramucci, Chuck Todd, the countless guests that we do on a daily and weekly basis, I brought them here, almost all of them, and they're not sports guys. Bernie and I don't do a weekly sports guest. The closest we've got to that is Russ Salzberg. Otherwise, it depends what's going on, right? If there's a big Mets story or Giant story, we'll do something, Bernie and I, but we don't have a regular guest. But whether it's, Bo Dietl or now Rich Lowry joins the cast starting tomorrow on a weekly basis, we've got the best weekly political guest list in the country. And I love it. I love it. I love it just as much as I do here on a Sunday talking sports. Yet, if you pick up today's New York Daily News, and I recommend you all do, even though most of our listeners here are conservatives, and read the Post because they like Trump and hate the Daily News because they hate Trump. Just for today, pick up the New York Daily News. And there's a very, very famous sports radio critic. He's also on television, although that's over now. The Daily News live show on SNY, that's over. But he's been on for 13 years. But he's a very famous in-town sports critic. You wouldn't know if you don't listen to sports. His name is Bob Raceman. He's the biggest effing a-hole, dick-face jerk-off in the history of the business. The biggest. You can pay him off. If your name is Dino Costa and you don't have a regular show in New York City, you can pay off Bob and he'll write about you. Or Chris Mad Dog Russo and his Sirius XM listeners, he'll write about you. And if he doesn't like you, like Phil Mushnick, he'll write things about you every week. So many years ago, he dubbed me Sidiot. Sid Rosenberg, Sidiot for Sid. Funny. That's fine. He was a guy that also penned Mike and the Mad Dog. How about that? That was him. So he writes about the sports talk landscape every Sunday. I'm never in there because I do a mostly political newsy show with Bernard with a little bit of sports. But I guess Raceman has been listening, and he's probably listening right now. So thanks, Bob. So in today's paper, he writes he writes his story. There's usually 4 or 5 different stories involving the world of sports in Raceman's column in the New York Daily News every Sunday. So the big story today is that the Mets, Brodie Van Wagenen, they've now hired Al Leiter, love Al Leiter, John Franco, and get this, Jessica Mendoza. You know who she is, right? The really pretty Latino girl who's on Sunday nights alongside A-Rod. He's hired them to be advisors for the Mets. Now, I think Jessica Mendoza is really good. I do. And she knows her baseball. How she comes to getting a job as an advisor for the Mets, I have no idea. But it's fine. That's the lead story. Then he's got 3 or 4 other stories, usually Francesa, some gas bag, as he calls us in the business. And the very last one is titled, Sid is a Sport. And he goes on to talk about how I do a daily show with Bernard McGurk, which covers a bunch of areas. That's how he says it, areas. Not news, not politics, not pop culture, not entertainment, areas. That's what he says. But it's clear now that Sid and Bernie do more sports, and Sid hosts his own show he mentions on Sundays, calls it a soiree. It's clear that Sid's heart is still in sports. Where he gets that from, I don't know. When you consider that I changed my Florida show 6-7 years ago to include the politics, that during the presidential race where Trump won, I had 8 candidates on down in South Florida. Somehow or another, I landed a job middays with Bernie on a strictly political station, not sports. And if you listen to me and Bernie every day, you'll be hard-pressed to find anyone. I don't care if it's Sean Hannity, Rush Limbaugh, Laura Ingraham, I don't care, who does a better political news interview than us. So where Bob Raceman gets it, my heart is in sports, and I only want to do sports, I don't know. Considering, again, that 80% of my weekly show has nothing to do with sports. And the show's great. But I'll take it. I'll take it because anytime WFAN is in the news and my name is attached to it, it's fun for me. Just goes to show management here that they can never get complacent. That people still want me, whether it's guy talk, whether it's political talk, whether it's sports talk. They want Sid Rosenberg because nobody does what I do. Nobody. Enough of that, Gunsy? What do you think? Enough?
Great job.
Okay, thank you. Go get the New York Daily News, Bob Raceman's column, Sid's A Sport. Now let's get to some big sports news today, and the biggest news of the day, Pittsburgh Steelers wide receiver, eventual Hall of Famer, guy that's put up incredible numbers playing with Ben Roethlisberger in Pittsburgh, Antonio Brown, is in the news. And that's because Antonio Brown is finally on the move, right? We know for weeks now, he has been for months, really. Didn't even play the last regular season game against the Cleveland Browns. He was late. Coach Tomlin elected to bench him, a game the Steelers really needed in an effort to make the playoffs. It didn't matter because somebody else won, so Pittsburgh could not get in the game against Cleveland. They needed a loss as well. They didn't get that, obviously. So, but Brown didn't play. And he is the most explosive wide receiver since the days of Lynn Swann and John Stallworth. I'm including Hines Ward and a host of others. So he's been asking for a trade for months. The New York Jets, a team that came up. But you have to understand, Adam Gase is the coach of the Jets now. He coached down in Miami the last couple of years. If you can't get along with Jarvis Landry, who the Dolphins dealt to the Browns last year, you're not going to get along with Antonio Brown. Bottom line. So, make a long story short, the Steelers have traded Antonio Brown to the Oakland Raiders. Now, the trade can't be official until next week, right, because of the free agency and all that type of thing. But it is a deal that is done. Antonio Brown goes with John Gruden and Derek Carr and the Raiders. All the Raiders give up, I should say, is a third-round pick and a fifth-round pick. Mike Mayock, who spent many of the last years on the NFL Network as an analyst, this is his first year with the Oakland Raiders as the new GM. So that is Mike Mayock's first deal as the GM of the Oakland Raiders, and he acquires Antonio Brown from the Pittsburgh Steelers to play with Derek Carr for John Gruden with the Oakland Raiders. So that may be a game changer. I doubt it. AFC West is still very, very talented. Mahomes and the Chiefs, very good. You know, Rivers and the Chargers are going to be tough. But Antonio Brown on his way to Oakland to play for the Raiders. Now, here in New York, we made a big trade this week. Olivier Vernon is out, and I couldn't be happier. You know, I understand that players kneel around the NFL. We've been through this. Thank God that's over with. I never liked it. I'm on record many, many times saying no matter what the players think, and you could talk all day long about freedoms in America, it is absolutely disrespectful to the servicemen, even cops, to sit during the national anthem on your knee as if you're living in, Venezuela. Sick about it. Well, this idiot, Olivier Vernon, who played his collegiate football down in Coral Gables when I lived down in South Florida, and played for the Dolphins when I lived down in South Florida. When the Giants signed him, I was happy. Legitimate big-time pass rusher, very good player for the Dolphins. Now, I thought the Giants overpaid him, but I don't care about that. That's not my money. That's Damara's money. We needed a pass rusher. He was the guy. Well, he spent most of his Giant career on his, not standing straight up. He was either down because he was hurt or kneeling because he's a jerk. I don't need number 54 kneeling, not in this city. Not in this city where 18 years ago we buried 3,000 people down by the World Trade Center. If I sound like an arrogant New Yorker, that's what I am. When it comes to the cops and terrorism and the service and this country, New York is number one. You don't come to New York City where we had to go through 9/11, and lots of people died that day. I understand they died in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. They died at the Pentagon. Nothing like what we had here in New York. 99% of the folks that died that day died here. So if you're 54 and the Giants just paid you a ton of money, more than you deserve, you epping stand for the national anthem. You stand. So I couldn't stand him. Plus the fact he was, like I said, always hurt and a disappointment. So the Giants get a really good guard, this kid Zeitler, who's going to help the Giant offensive line, and we get rid of a guy that most Giant fans didn't like. So I kind of like that deal. So that's your football news for the day. Baseball, Yankees, of course, Luis Severino, he's out. He's got a shoulder issue. So opening day is coming up, March 28th this year, folks, not April, this month. March 28th, Yankees open up at home against the Baltimore Orioles, and for the fourth time in 5 years, Tanaka will be the Yankee opening day starter. Because don't forget now, when the Yankees start day one, no Severino, no Sabathia. He's hurt too. So Germán, Cessa, A couple other guys will be on the opening day roster. Now, they'll get those guys back eventually, but Tanaka will get the start week 1. And college basketball last night, UNC rolls all over Duke again. No Zion Williamson. Don't forget, today's the last day of the regular season of college basketball. It's all over. So we start conference tournaments this week, coming up on Wednesday at the Barclays Center, the A-10 tournament downstairs on Wednesday. Me and Guns are going to be there, the Big East tournament. So now we've got postseason basketball, college basketball. Today's the last day. So UNC rolls all over Duke. Michigan State with an amazing second half. They come back and meet Michigan. And how about Seton Hall? Locally, the Pirates defeating both Marquette and Villanova this week. Right, they were one of those bubble teams. St. John's, Creighton, Georgetown got a big win yesterday. Who was going to make it from the Big East? A huge week for the Seton Hall Pirates. So here's what we got coming up today. Maybe the greatest defenseman in the history of the NHL and a Hall of Famer, a winner of 4 Stanley Cups and 1,000 records in NHL history. Former New York Islander great Denis Potvin set to join us in about 10 minutes. We'll talk NBA basketball with Brian Geltzaler. We will talk college basketball with ESPN analyst and former Manhattan and St. John's head coach Fran Fraschilla. And we'll talk baseball with a guy that had an amazing 17-year career, including 4 great years here with the New York Mets, and that's Cliff Floyd. Plus, Danny B's got your picks and a quick hello on Bryce Harper and the Phillies from our friend Dr. T. All that today here on Sid Sports Sunday. Stick around. Denis Potvin, Islanders hockey, coming up next.
WABC. Sid Sports Sunday, driven by Ramsey Mazda. Every Sunday, New York sports and more. 77 WABC and the free WABC radio app.
Let's get out here with a W.
Some guy, Wayne Barr, on Facebook is a moron. He's like, you'd rather promote yourself than talk about what? Yeah, that's what this business is all about, dummy. It's not about what I talk about, what Bernie talks about. It's not about our opinion on Donald Trump, the Mets, or the Islanders. We promote ourselves. Because at the end of the day, the reason why you listen to any one of us, whether it's me or Sean Hannity or Mike Francesa, is because of us. So, yes, I'm going to promote myself before I talk about the sports stories of the day. That's why I'm a success in this business, Wayne Barr, whoever you are, and you are who you are, which is unsuccessful at whatever you do. Putz. Talking about success, I am nowhere near this next guy. This next guy may be the best defenseman in the history of the National Hockey League. A deserving Hall of Famer. Amazing years between 1973 and 1987 with the New York Islanders, winning 4 Stanley Cups and setting just about every single record a defenseman can ever set. He has spent many years down in South Florida, where I spent a lot of time with Denny, announcing for the Florida Panthers, but still keeps his eye on the Islanders, where as of today, the Islanders are in second in the Metropolitan Division behind the Capitals, and 5th, having an amazing season inside the Eastern Conference. So here he is, my good friend, all-time Hall of Fame great, Denis Potvin. Good morning, Denny.
Wow, what an introduction. Thank you, sir.
Well, it's good to talk to you. I'm doing great.
Yeah.
I was talking
I miss you.
I miss you, too. I do. I really do. And I was thinking yesterday, I remember, that one trip, Denny, when Vinny Viola and Doug Sipu, the owners of the Panthers, and Vinny's one of the richest men in New York City. He owns Virtue, but they also own the Panthers. I'm not sure New Yorkers know that. And they would fly me on the plane with you and Randy Moeller and Steve Goldstein and the players and the coaches up to New York when the Panthers had a series against the Rangers, Devils, and Islanders. And we'd have a blast on the plane, on the bus, just talking about old days. And I remember that first dinner that we had with the Panther team in Brooklyn at Vinny's favorite restaurant, Bamonti's, the oldest Italian restaurant in New York City. And I looked across the table, Denny, and you were there, and God rest his soul, Bill Torrey, 2 of the greatest Islanders of all time. I got Arbor and Torrey. You got to miss those guys tremendously, huh?
It's been a rough couple of years when you consider, Al passed away a couple of years ago. And then, of course, we had a celebration of life for Al Arbor, and a lot of the players made the comments, and it was always the same thing. It was love, and it was tough, and Al Arbor was really a guy who wanted to get the best out of all of us. Bill Torrey was the kind of general manager that wanted to, put talent in the hands of Al Arbor and get him to be able to make everybody produce, on a consistent basis. And, we look at the NHL today. Being consistent is probably the hardest thing any team has as a challenge, and, of course, any coach. I just think Bill Torrey and Al Arbor may have been the best 1-2 combo in terms of hockey management that there ever was.
Well, Edmonton may argue, because after you guys swept them in your fourth and final Stanley Cup, they went on to win 5 out of 7 with Glenn Sather as the head coach. I often think about this, and I know, again, you swept them, but they got better, Messier, Gretzky, and those guys. In their prime, up against you guys in your prime, Oilers, Islanders, who wins that series?
Well, of course, we would win it, and that would that exactly what happened in 1983.
Yeah, they were young,
both,
though.
Well, yeah, but both teams were in their prime, and Gretzky, I think, had scored over 200 points. They led the league in goals, and we were the underdogs in that series. There's no, there was no denying the fact that the Edmonton Oilers were in 1983, one of the best teams in the NHL. As a matter of fact, the 1984 team, which was exactly the same team but a year later, Edmonton, I'm talking about, was rated in Canada as the best ever team in the NHL, even better than the Montreal Canadiens of 1978 when they only lost 8 games.
But they did win the Cup that year, Edmonton.
Yeah.
Yep.
But it gives you a pretty good idea of the kind of team that we beat 4 straight, mind you.
Yes.
4 straight.
Yes.
In 1983.
No, that's
You're not
right.
going to win that. You're not going to win that argument with me.
Listen, you win, Denny. That's fine. You did sweep them, beating the Flyers, the Minnesota North Stars, the Canucks, and the Oilers. You swept them in that amazing way. You know what's funny, Denny, is last Wednesday night, I went downstairs because I work in Madison Square Garden. I went downstairs to catch the Rangers. They're a young team, not as good as the Isles. They're not going to make the playoffs, but they got some good young talent. I go downstairs to watch the Rangers take on the Rangers South, and that's the Tampa Bay Lightning, 5 former Rangers. And there it is. Not 2 minutes into the game, Denny, I hear the whistle, and I hear Potvin sucks. You haven't played a hockey game at Madison Square Garden in about 30 years. Are you not absolutely honored that Ranger fans still hate you to this day?
Well, honored and hate are 2 words that I'm not so sure go together really well. Listen, it certainly is a testimony to what we did during those years when the Rangers, you felt that they probably had a good enough team to win the Cup. But like many teams, Washington and others in that era, we had to play, they had to play us in those series. And, we were the ones who were pretty dominant throughout, 79 right through 85 or 84 pretty much. So I think that what's happened was never forgotten. All I can say, and I was thinking of this when I was watching the Islander game against Toronto last week and John Tavares, I was saying to myself, John Tavares, you don't know how tough the Ranger fans can be.
Yes.
And it may never be the same in New York for John Tavares. Heck, he may take over for me if it were.
I used to whistle. I used to whistle and yell that at the Garden. Then I got to know you down in South Florida. Now I love you. So as far as I'm concerned, Denny Potvin is great. Here we are with the Hall of Famer, Denny Potvin. And I want to get to this modern-day Islander club in just a little bit. You did mention the fact that you beat the Rangers all 4 of those years. You won the Cup. You blew them out. You swept them in the semifinals year 1. The next 3 years, a little more competitive, those series. Eddie Mio played well, and you had guys like Ronnie Duguay and, Greshner. You go back and, Potts, Denny, when you look at those series and some of those guys, you were friendly with some of those guys, even though it was brutal on the ice and very competitive, although you guys won every time. It was quite the scene in New York, right? I mean, guys like Ron Duguay at Studio 54, and you guys got into any club you wanted, and yet you told me, even though you won every series, sometimes you have to wait for the Ranger guys to get in first.
Yes, well, listen. What do you mean by getting in first? Getting in where?
I mean, if you're online at Studio 54, you're waiting for the Ranger guys to get in.
Hey, listen. Yes, They were in before we were and left after we did. So how about that? Now, listen, it was a great time in New York, and you're right. The rivalries, and I probably, in those days we didn't, there wasn't a lot of movement. Guys, we had 16 players that have their name on 4 Stanley Cups, so there wasn't a lot of changes, and we didn't really know the other team all that well. But heck, we played the Rangers, I think, 8 or 10 times a year, and so it was quite a different league back then. And you got to know a lot of the players intimately, and of course, the Rangers, good friends. Phyllis Brazino in particular, and Brad Park, and Ron Duguay and John Davidson. Those all became good friends. But once the equipment was on, it had to be a different story.
Right. And you had, the 16 Bossy and Trottier and Gillies and Nystrom and Billy Smith and you. I mean, even guys like Tonelli and Caller. And you're right, there's not a lot of movement, but there were 2 guys that came to the team. One, fresh off the Olympics, Kenny Morrow, helped you on defense. And the other, the acquisition of Butch Goring. Felt like those were 2 pretty big moves to your hockey team.
Well, they were huge. I mean, Kenny Morrow, of course, everybody knows now, when he ends up accomplishing. That'll never be done, winning Olympic gold and then in the same season winning the Cup and going on to win 3 more. Butch Goring was a key acquisition. Everybody knows the story. And, every trade deadline, every season, the Butch Goring story comes up. And is there a team that's going to be able to have a player that can make that much difference? For us, it wasn't getting... Butch Goring was not going to be our Brian Trottier. It's just that Butch Goring came in and filled that second-line centerman role that we so dearly needed. And Brent Sutter, who was our third-line centerman, was probably more suited for third line at that time in his career. So it all came together. There's so many moves that Bill Torrey made, and then the development of the players and having people come together under Al Arbour was really the secret. Last night, I don't know if you know, Sid, but they had a little celebration of life again for Bill Torrey at the Islander game against the Flyers. I just finished watching it this morning.
Yeah.
Still very emotional.
Yeah.
And, it was a great team and organization for a long time.
So if I would have said to you in '83 when you walked off, well, actually as an Islander, you walked off in '87, that you guys wouldn't win another Stanley Cup, and you've had some lean years. You had some decent years with LaFontaine and some playoff years later on, obviously. And this team, they're a 5 seed. Who knows what they can do? But really, for the better part here of about 30-something years, it has not been a very good run for the Islanders. If I would have told you about that back in '87, would you have been surprised?
Yeah, I would never have believed that there would be an ownership that would let the franchise, kind of wilt away, and in particular, ignore the alumni for so many years. The new ownership now, John Ledecky and, Mr. Malkin, it's been a terrific resurgence of a relationship between the alumni and the current.
Well, was it Charles Wang? Who was the guy that?
Was Charles. It was Charles Wang, and in 20 years, Sid, I spoke to him once.
Wow.
Can you imagine? Once.
Wow.
I don't know what the mindset was, but this whole line that so many hockey players have heard in the past is, we're going in a different direction. I think they felt at the time that maybe, having the alumni around was going to be too much pressure on the young players or something that never happened in Montreal or Toronto, of course, but or the Rangers. You always celebrate, the guys that have had success.
Sure.
In the organization. And for some reason they went a different way. And I think that certainly did not help the growth of the team throughout the 90s and so on. And so it was sad. But now it's all in the past. And here we are in a totally new direction. And the Islanders having an opportunity to build a new building soon. And, all of these things are very positive.
Now you can move back to New York. You were excommunicated. That's why you moved to Boca all those years.
Well, for maybe 185 days,
right.
I'll go to New York.
Right, exactly. No, you got it all right, Denny. Trust me. So this team, Leonard's banged up right now, but he's had a great year. I guess the guy in Tampa is going to win the Vezina, but Robin is certainly one of the top 3 goalies in the league this year. So the injury does hurt, but some very good young players, 5 or 6 guys that light the lamp on a consistent basis. Fun team to watch, yes?
Well, listen, I think that, we saw things from the Islanders last year that were very, very impressive. And, I actually spoke with Anders Lee in training camp after he was selected as captain of the team. And, tremendous young man. I'd met him personally before, but spoke to him on the phone when the news came out. And I think that in terms of direction and leadership, he seemed to be the right guy. Now you move off the ice, obviously getting Barry Trotz and, I call him Dr. Lou Lamorello. There's nobody who seems to fix a problem better than he has. So a lot of good things have come together. You remember, you mentioned Robin Leonard, but I think overall this team has played exceptional. I don't know if they're a Stanley Cup team yet, but I tell you what, every aspect of their game has improved tremendously over 1 year. So Barry Trotz may be in line for another trophy as well.
He should be. He should be the coach of the year. That's the Adams Award. He should win that hands up. In fact, Barry Melrose did tell me that last week. He would be his choice right now to win that award. Hey, listen, Denny, it's great to catch up with you. I do miss you. You were a blast down in South Florida working with the Panthers. I know you still do, but you are still beloved and revered in a big way up here in New York City. So thanks for calling in today, Denny. A lot of people, a lot of Islander fans listening this morning are very, very happy.
Well, I will always embrace New York as my home. I've always loved that. 23 years I was there. So my best to everybody in the Big Apple and Long Island. And, talk to you soon, Sid. Good luck with your show.
Thank you, Denny. The great Hall of Famer, great New York Islander, and even a better guy. Trust me. Denis Potvin. We'll take a short break. We'll switch gears. Big night in college basketball, I should say. Fran Fraschilla, terrific coach in Manhattan, New Mexico, and locally at St. John's. Now a top ESPN analyst with college basketball. Breaks it down right after these words. Back here on Sid Sports Sunday. What a huge week coming up. Conference tourney play. And then, of course, before you know it, it'll be time for the NCAA basketball tournament. I, for one, am very excited because me and my producer of this fine show, the great Mike Gunzelman, we got our credentials this week. We got the approval, actually, for the Big East tournament. I always tell people, you could have Super Bowl tickets. I've covered 18 of them. I've covered World Series. I've covered every Mike Tyson fight in Vegas. All great, don't get me wrong. But to be on the floor Saturday night, Big East Championship, at least way back when I started to love college basketball, Mullen at St. John's, Ewing at Georgetown, Villanova, that type of stuff. Nothing better. It's still great. And with that said, my next guest, one of his 3 head coaching jobs, was at the aforementioned St. John's. Did a very good job along with Manhattan and New Mexico. Now one of the best college basketball analysts and actually sits alongside the play-by-play guys. Does an amazing job for ESPN. My longtime dear friend, Fran Fraschilla. Good morning, Franny. How are you, pal?
From the neighborhood, Sid. From the neighborhood.
Yes.
Every time I go back home to Brooklyn, I drive around the neighborhood. It's great. You know what I just found out? Just want to let you know. Jay Wright's favorite Italian restaurant in New York is Michael's on Avenue R and Nostrand Avenue. I never knew that.
By the way, that's one of my favorites. You know, growing up on Quentin Road on East 22nd and going back to my sister's house in Mill Basin, I go to Michael's all the time. I know Michael himself very, very well. So Jay Wright's got great taste. He's got great taste. Yeah, people forget he was over at Hofstra all those years before he became a monster winner at Villanova. So what Villanova said here, Freddie, let's go right to the Big East. St. John's closes out the season yesterday against Xavier. Been up and down. They've had huge wins this year. They have weeks where they lose to teams like DePaul and Providence. They can't beat Providence. Overall, as we get ready for the big tourney on Wednesday, how do you think Chris Mullen and St. John's did this year? And do you like their chances as a real possibility to win the Big East?
Well, they were enigmatic at times, no question. I got a chance to watch them play and practice quite a bit early in the year, and on a given night, Sid, there's no question they can play with any team in the country. They're a small team, but they're very athletic. They've got a great guard in Shamari Pons, Mustafa Heron. I think they're a tournament team right now. I really do. It doesn't hurt to go into the Big East tournament this coming week and grab a win or two. They're definitely capable of that. I would say, quite honestly, they're capable of putting together, 3 games where they can actually win the league. Now, I'm a little partial to Villanova. My son's a grad assistant there. Jay's done another great job. But St. John's they have a chance to win the Big East tournament, but they have to be more consistent than they've been, throughout the year. A lot of good moments, I think, however.
Yeah, you're right, and they got the guard play. When you get a hot guard in these tourneys, whether it's conference or big dance, it's a good thing, but they really are small up front. Pascal Villanova eats them for lunch all the time. Even Marquette, they can't stop those guys. I mean, I look at the Big East, you got about 4 teams there, Brandy, whether it's St. John's, Seton Hall, Creighton, Georgetown. A couple of those teams should make it, but there's really no guarantee for any of them, right?
No, well, I think it's 2 for sure, and I think it's going to be as many as 4. Seton Hall certainly has played well lately, no question. So I think they're in the mix as well. Here's a little interesting stat for the listeners. Since 2002, no major conference has ever had all of their teams at 500 or above at the end of the regular season. The Big East did that this year.
Wow.
It's an amazing accomplishment when you think about it. And the point being said that as good as Villanova and Marquette have been, for most of the year, I really don't think there's a big difference between Providence and Butler, down there in the quote unquote basement, and Villanova and Marquette. This is as evenly matched a league, which is going to make a great week for basketball. At the Garden this week.
Fran Fraschilla, Sid Sports Sunday. Fran, you got to give Krzyzewski credit because he loses Zion. This is the best player in college basketball.
They definitely need Zion back. And let me just say this about Zion. He is, from day one, November 6th, when he played against Kentucky, he is the best player in college basketball. Could he have gone right to the NBA? And will guys like him in the future be able to? I'm fairly certain that they're going to change that rule. But keep in mind that the Duke brand has not hurt Zion one single bit. I've said this since the beginning. My man Adam Zagoria wrote this, I think, in the New York Times article. Zion will make $1 billion playing basketball, not at least, and maybe more. And we probably won't be around to see it, you and I, Sid. But by the time he gets done, this kid's got the Madison Avenue smile.
Yep.
He plays with a joy. He's a cartoon character in terms of the way he looks on the court. And think about what Nike's going to do. Nike's going to sign this kid, even though they had the shoe blowout, because, my take on it is, hey, any kid who can destroy a pair of Nikes with the physical force that he has must be superhuman. Think of the ad campaign they're going to have for this kid.
Yeah, no, they're going to make it up to him too in big time money. All right, and Jim Dolan, no issue paying Williamson big money when he becomes, from my mouth to God's ears, of course, a New York Knickerbocker. Hey, let me talk to you about Virginia, because there are some that think Virginia will win the ACC. I don't. Look, I love Guy, I love Hunter. They got guys that can get it done, but I don't feel comfortable late in the game that they've got a guy like Barrett, for example, that's going to win the game for him. I may be way off here. Maybe Tony Bennett would laugh at me, but that's my feeling.
Well, I'll tell you this. When Duke beat Virginia at Virginia, I might be off by 1 or 2, but they did something that Duke doesn't normally do this year, which is shoot the ball great from 3. I think they made 15 or 16 threes that night. I just don't think Duke's going to make 15 or 16 threes if they see Virginia in the ACC final. I really don't. And I have to tell you, things change, obviously, if Zion's not playing, but we think he'll play in the ACC tournament and in the NCAA tournament, Sid. But I happen to be a fan of Virginia, because I really do think that Guy and Jerome and Hunter, they're a year older. People can laugh about losing at UMBC, but you have to remember DeAndre Hunter did not play in that game. He was out for the season by that time. So I happen to be one of those guys that's on that Virginia bandwagon. I think they've always been good defensively. This year they have the third scorer, and I think they're going to be a formidable team here the next 3 weeks.
Now, what about the Big Ten? I know Michigan State got a big win at Michigan a couple of weeks ago. They followed that up by the Michigan State not long after that by losing a brutal game to Indiana last weekend. I still think Michigan is the best team inside that conference, but whether you think it's them or Izzo, any one of those teams you think can make real noise come up in the NCAA basketball tournament?
Yeah, well, they played last night, and we're going to find out what they do this week in the Big Ten tournament. And I happen to be a Michigan fan. Michigan State's got a couple key guys out for the season, but Michigan, to me, is built for tournament play. If you think about tournament play, and you got a lot of listeners getting ready to put together brackets, said coaching does matter in the NCAA tournament, because what you have to do over 3 weekends is you have to treat each weekend like a 4-team tournament, because you're only playing any combination of 3 other teams in your little pot there. So you got a game, and then you play the winner of a game that's next to you in the bracket. So coaching matters over a given weekend, and when you have great coaches, we've already seen that both Izzo and John Beilein can get their teams to the Final Four. Izzo's done it numerous occasions. But I like this Michigan team. Defense first. They still have some guys that can put the ball in the basket, and I think they're built for March. I really do.
Yeah, no, Jordan Poole can score. Last one, we'll wrap it up with this, Franny. Gonzaga's a great team. We know the teams that are great, and then there are teams that are kind of somewhere between 10 and 20. And I know I'm not talking about Buffalo, okay? I love Buffalo. They've had a great year, but they're not going to win anything. So, but who knows? It could be a Cinderella team. My boy Jim Larinaga did it with George Mason years ago. So who are some of the 2 or 3 teams, Franny, that you think we don't pay a lot of attention to, that now with conference tourneys and the big dance coming up, we're going to have to pay attention to?
That's a good question. I think right off the bat, Sid, a team that has been ranked as high as 8. I don't know where they will be this Monday. But if they've been down there in the 20s, is Texas Tech. They have hit their stride.
I think they're going to win the Big 12 tournament. They can score, by the way, in bunches.
Yes, and they are the number 1 defensive team in the country. Going into next week, and that's slightly ahead of, you ready for this, Michigan and Virginia.
Wow.
So, but the simple fact is, to your point, in the last month where they've won, they've been on an incredible hot streak. They've really started to shoot the ball well and score. So that's a team. I got a sneaky feeling about Wisconsin. They've got a senior. Now, he can't make free throws, Ethan Happ, but he's one of the most decorated players in Big Ten history. Wisconsin's one of those teams you don't want to see. I think that given if a bracket falls apart somewhere, they can get to a Final Four. They come to mind.
See, the problem with Wisconsin is, and you know a lot more about this than I do, and Happ is great, don't get me wrong, but when you double Happ, he's got to get the ball out, and they just can't shoot. I mean, you got to play like a 48-46 game for Wisconsin to win.
I don't disagree with that. I think the little kid Trice can make shots, but they don't beat themselves, and they're quite good defense. And they may not be as offensively formidable as you need to be to go to a Final Four and even have a chance to win it. But I think I wouldn't want to play them. Let's put it that way. LSU's another team, but we'll have to see what happens with Will Wade. All of a sudden, Auburn is playing like the team we thought they would be coming into the season.
Yep.
Guard play, depth, and obviously Bruce Pearl's a great coach. Another team to keep your eye on in the tournament.
Such an exciting time of year, Franny. And listen, I watch college basketball. Unlike the other guys in this town, they start watching about now, and they act as if they don't. Mike, you know those guys. But me, I'm there from day one, and I love this time of year. I know I'll see you down at the Garden at some point here next week. I love you, and it's great to talk to you, Franny. Thank you so much.
Always great to catch up, Sid. Thanks so much.
God bless you. The great Fran Fraschilla, terrific college basketball coach, and now does an amazing job as an analyst with ESPN. And be exciting to see guys like Franny down at the Garden. We'll take a short break. More of Sid Sports Sunday right after these words.
77 WABC.
You gotta be ready to go.
Breakfast in bed with Sid. A dream come true. Sid Sports Sunday. Driven by Ramsey Mazda every Sunday.
Man, oh man, they can't stop us.
77 WABC.
It's been a fun hour. Hall of Famer Denny Potvin, great ESPN college basketball analyst Fran Fraschilla, terrific. Next hour, former great New York baseball player, 17 years in the majors, 4 years with the Mets. Cliff Floyd, a very popular player here. Brian Geltzeiler, hoops critic, Sirius XM and the XM channel. Great basketball guy. He'll be here. And, of course, every week Danny B does an amazing job picking games. A very long slate today, 9 NBA games and about 25 college games. So we'll get to Danny B. But I do want to talk to Dr. T. Of course, you guys hear us talk about NJ Diet all the time. They guarantee you'll lose 20 to 50 pounds in only 40 days, and you always will. Dr. T is not in the business of giving you your money back. He gets it done. Not just health, not just a diet, I should say, but health benefits and a million reasons why NJ Diet has been ultra successful. He's also a huge Philadelphia sports fan. And he was on a couple of weeks ago about the Eagles and Nick Foles, and he was so good that I'm turning back to Dr. T today to get his Philadelphia sports opinion on the big Bryce Harper move to the Phillies. Harper made his spring training debut just a couple of days ago, and now the Phillies, maybe now the favorite to win the NL East, and maybe the favorite to win the NL overall, the whole pennant. Here he is, our dear friend Arthur Turovitz, the genius that is Dr. T. Good morning, pal.
Good morning, Sid.
How are you?
Great to join you. I love this. This is very exciting. You know, you and I know each other a little bit, but this morning I just came back. Every Sunday I have my chauffeur pick me up in my white Bentley. They take me to this strip mall for a bagel and a massage. So I'm very relaxed from that.
That sounds familiar.
Story? I just needed to say that. The only thing that makes that story better if Giselle is the chauffeur in that whole scenario.
Right, exactly right. No, he's got it pretty good. He's got it pretty good. 77 years old, God bless him. You got to love Bob Kraft. So let's get right to the other. That's very funny. The Bryce Harper stuff. As a lifelong Philadelphia fan, how excited were you, Dr. T, to get Bryce Harper on your baseball team?
I'm thrilled about it, and the whole city's going crazy. I mean, the best-selling fan jersey is his. I think within the first 48 hours of joining a new team, out-dueling LeBron James. So that's a huge deal there. So they're all excited. Everybody's fired up about it. But it is Philadelphia. If they're not 81-0, they could be booing the guy like they did to Schmidt and Santa Claus over there. So who knows?
There's no doubt. Now, if I don't know what the hierarchy is. I asked Mike Missinelli this last week. He says it's usually the Eagles, but with Harper now on the Phillies are the number one team in Philadelphia. How do you feel about that?
You know, I think it's a football town. But yeah, I mean, at this point, absolutely, they love their Phils. They love following them, and they rooting for them. And you could be both. They don't have to be. You could do the Eagles a certain time of the year, and the Phillies the next time of the year. So it's really close. They do love their Phillies over there.
And the 76ers, we'll get to them right in the middle. They've got a big game coming up today.
And Missinelli's always wanted to point out that you have the Stepford fans of the Flyers over there also. That no matter what happens, they sell out all the time.
They absolutely.
That's his usual line.
They do, and I've been to Flyer games in Philadelphia. It's quite the scene. So now you just said it. If they're not 81-0, Philly fans will be booing them. Are the expectations in your hometown, Arthur, now that the Phillies will get to the World Series?
I think the Dodgers are probably still better, and the Cubs are still better, and St. Louis is always good. But they've added so many pieces over there, and I think they're willing to go out. You know, they've added the catcher. The question mark is the pitching, right? After Nola, you got a bunch of question marks. Arrieta, you hope he comes back to form. But after that, there's a bunch of question marks. The bullpen looks good, which is really important in the postseason. But you know, there's definitely potential there. It's just a matter of a number of question marks as well. They added the outfielder, Metuchen's out there, and so they have a solid team. It looks really good.
A real good team. They added Segura, the shortstop. You mentioned the bullpen. They added the former Yankee, David Robertson. And then, of course, you mentioned him, JT Realmuto, the former Marlin, maybe the best catcher in baseball. But you're right. After Nola, you're not sure if Arrieta is going to be as good. Pivetta as a 3. And the 4 and 5 certainly questionable. So that's where the Mets in that division may in fact have the edge. What about the story that came out this week that Harper has already tried? He's in trouble for this a bit here. He's already tried to recruit Angels outfielder Mike Trout to come back to Philadelphia next year.
That would be phenomenal. And I'm sure that's exactly what happens. I mean, with the way people communicate these days and just conversations in general and social media and emailing and texting and God knows what, I'm sure that everybody does the same thing. There's a rule in place for a reason. They probably should just keep the rule to front office staff, because I don't think you're going to get a player to stop telling another player, hey, come on over here, we got a great team, we'd love to add you to the whole scenario, we could do really well over here. So I don't think that's going to stop happening.
Couldn't agree more. One last thing, 76ers, right now they're just a half a game ahead of Boston. Boston beat LeBron James and the Lakers on the road last night for that very important number 4 seed in the East. That means you get to host a playoff series. They are hosting Indiana. Right now the 3 seed in the East. Later on today, a huge basketball game in Philadelphia, Dr. T. What's the feeling about the 76ers as we head towards postseason?
My feeling is the following. I mean, Embiid comes back healthy. The team is awesome, but they have two glaring problems. Your point guard can't make a foul shot.
Right.
And he can't make a 10-footer. So in a 7-game series against an Indiana or a Toronto or something like that, I think that's a big, huge issue. And I don't know how you overcome that. What are you going to do, take the ball out of your point guard's hands at the end of the game?
Nope, can't do that. By the way, Embiid is expected back today for the 76ers.
Hopefully he's healthy.
Hopefully he is. Okay, on the way out, Dr. T, tell everybody what I tell everybody, and Bernie and the rest of us tell everybody every single day about why NJ Diet is the best in the business.
Well, we guarantee the weight loss. We use hair, saliva, DNA testing. We personalize supplements for each individual. We monitor people. People can contact me. We do everything we can to make sure people lose the weight and get their health back with every single person that we see.
That's a great job. You're now 2 for 2 on this show, Dr. T. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Always great talking to you.
You're the man. You got it. NJ Diet, 855-NJ-DIET. Log on to NJDiet.com. When we get back, he's been great since week 2 of the NFL. Like 35,000 consecutive winning weeks. Big day NBA and college basketball. DBWins.com. My dear friend Danny Bianculo, right after these words.
Sid Sports Sunday, driven by Ramsey Mazda. 77 WABC. WABC, New York. 77 WABC. The new Bernie and Sid in the morning.
I think it would be great if you and I hosted a debate. I don't know. I think it would be really good. What do you think?
It would be. I would love. No. Answer. Stop. What did I answer the question?
You think I would curse?
Oh, when he got into the Jew-hating stuff.
Yeah.
And justifiably.
Stupid. God, you're a moron.
Yeah. You should be at the kiddie table. Shut up.
Bernie and Sid in the morning. Weekday morning, 6 to 10.
Now on Echo devices.
77 WABC.
1, 2, 3.
Sid Sports Sunday. Every Sunday. From the NJDiet.com studios. 77 WABC, New York. A Cumulus station. 77 WABC.
Back on Sid Sports Sunday, big hour coming up. Cliff Floyd talking baseball. Brian Geltzeiler talking NBA. The minute from Curtis Sliwa. But 10 o'clock hour every Sunday morning goes to Danny B. Let's get right to it, Bruce Clayton. DBWins.com.
This segment is sponsored by DBWins.com.
Nobody better. Big day today. 9 games in the NBA. A ton of Big Ten action, as well as a big matchup in the American Conference between Houston and Cincinnati in college basketball. Here's our guy, the host of Inside the Numbers on Saturday night, and a mainstay on Sid Sports Sunday every Sunday. Our good buddy Danny Bianculo. Good morning, Danny.
Good morning, Sid. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm just watching the rain here. It's one of those days you want to sit at home and watch an Abbott and Costello movie.
You know what I watched last night? I watched last week, I saw Bohemian Rhapsody because my producer, Gillo, I love desperately, wouldn't shut up about Rami Malek. And I thought I was so disappointed. The music was good, but the movie sucked. And to be honest, Rami looked like Freddie Mercury, but they left out all the drugs and all the real degenerate sex. I thought that the movie was disappointing. I thought he didn't do much at all. So last night I watched Green Book. The difference between Green Book and Bohemian Rhapsody is like the difference between Mookie Wilson in center field and Mickey Mantle. I mean, it is not even. There's no way you can watch those two movies. I don't care if it's Viggo Mortensen or Ali, and say that A. Malik should have won the award or B. Rhapsody should be even nominated for an award like that. It was a complete joke. So today you should go watch Green Book, Danny. You'll love it.
No, you know what? I've been meaning to do that, and I did watch Bohemian, and it was a decent movie.
Decent, right.
They didn't get deep. They didn't
Right.
go into his, before he hooked up with Queen. They didn't do the drug thing, everything that caused him to die.
They gave him an award for 20 minutes of playing music like Live Aid. That was ridiculous.
Yeah.
It was insulting, to be honest. And, you can also watch today all the coverage, Danny. Congratulations to A-Rod. He's getting married again. This time it's Jennifer Lopez. They're engaged now. So.
Well, I missed that one. Hey, Jay. J-Lo's marrying A-Rod.
Yeah, they're engaged.
Okay, we're going to go to the wedding there, Jay.
You and Jamie?
Actually, if it wasn't so cloudy, I can see right into their bedroom window. I went out and bought one of those high-tech binoculars.
I'm sure you could. Well, what is being you're the champ at this, give me the over-under on how many years J-Lo and A-Rod stay married, and would you take the over or the under, no matter what you make the number at?
I got 2.5 minus 140. That ain't going to last. Come on, that never does. They should have just stayed boyfriend and girl. Actually, you can probably bet on that somewhere.
I'm sure.
I'm sure you can. Actually, we had Johnny Atkin from PointsBet last night on it. Great guy. They have a lot of different promos going on right now, Sid. For anybody that wants to bet the games, they should check them out.
Yeah, they're in Jersey City. They're a local company, and they're doing an amazing job, and they're going to, I believe, play a part in Inside the Numbers and Sid Sports Sunday, and Bernie and Sid as well. So we're excited to talk to those guys, and they probably do have a line for that one. Let me get to some of the NBA games today, Danny, because folks are tuned in now until Major League Baseball. Biggest game of the day has the 3-seed Indiana at the 4-seed Philly. And again, the Sixers only a half a game better than Boston for that coveted 4 seed. The Celtics won in L.A. against the Lakers last night. Big game today. What do you see there?
I like Philly in this one. Again, I'm not an NBA guru. We leave that up to Donaghy. They lost 2 in a row. They play well at home. The money's coming in on Philly. So if I'm betting this game, I'm putting the money on Philadelphia minus 4.5 to 5, Sid.
You would put the money on Philadelphia. It's 9 games in all, like a good Texas game. Not a good game necessarily because Dallas has been awful. But James Harden is back today. Rockets and Mavericks. Any interest in that? Any of those other 8 games pique your interest?
No, it's early yet. The lines are going to move. But one game that popped out right away was Philadelphia. And in college, I'm not in love with anything except for South Florida today, minus 2 at home playing SMU. They play well at home, and next week we lose that home court advantage. Neutral court, Big East tournament, all that needs.
Well, unless you're St. John's.
Yeah. Oh my God.
That's basically a home game. Not that it matters. They got blown out again by Xavier yesterday. But you're right. Now we start to get to the conference tourneys and the big dance, and they do become neutral. So
good coaching. You need good coaching. I heard that segment prior to mine. You need good coaching. Izzo's one of those coaches that can get you through the tournament.
Well, listen, he's got a bunch of banged-up players. They were losing at the half last night, and he found a way to get his Michigan State Spartans past the Michigan Wolverines. So all those Big Ten matchups today, Nebraska, Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, none of those get you going.
Well, the money's coming in on Iowa, but I'd walk on that gently. What else? Wisconsin, money's coming in on Wisconsin, but it's tough. This is not easy. This time of the year gets tough. They're playing on adrenaline. Teams are on the bubble. This is an exciting week. But the only game, and I looked at it last night, I gave it out at minus 2, South Florida. I think it went up to 2.5, back down to 2. But this is the only thing that jumped at me today, Sid.
Oh, what about this Houston-Cincinnati game? May not jump at you, but it's the biggest game of the day.
Absolutely.
With two top 25 teams. You're going to have to make a pick. We're not going to put your gun to your head for this one, but Houston-Cincy, what do you think?
I'm going over on that one, Sid. And I figured you were going to ask me that question. They both play good, one at home, one on the road. So, this is going to be a great game. I would go over the 128. Does this game start here at 11 o'clock today?
I believe it's a very early start. Yes, coming up in about 50 minutes. No, it's noon, according to Mike Gunzelman. He's all over this stuff.
Well, this time change thing, Sid. I know you got to be exhausted. You had to get out of bed an hour earlier.
I didn't even realize that because what happens, this is the truth, Danny, is I get up during the week at 3:45 a.m. to get here before 5 for the Bernie and Sid show. So, and it sucks. My body is so used to that Saturdays and Sundays, I still get up at like 3:45 in the morning. Now, on the weekends, I just take a piss for the 5th time that night and go back to bed. But my body wakes me up early every single day. I can't sleep late.
No, me neither. I guess it's getting old. Once you hit 45, 50, you just
forget
can't
it.
do
Well,
it.
you go to the bathroom like 5-6 times. I do at least 5-6 times a night.
Horrible.
It's
It's
terrible.
horrific. I hate it. I hate it. 2 to 3 times for me. I've gotten better over the years.
Yeah.
But, no, that is an issue. My kids, man, they sleep. I don't know about your kids, but like on a weekend like this, they're sleeping till like 1 o'clock.
Oh, my daughter Ava's the worst. 1 o'clock. Yeah, that's about right. 1 o'clock. And she's not even at the age where she goes out yet. She's still home in bed, thank God, 9 o'clock at night. She sleeps till 1. My son, Gaby, he's up early. He's up by 7 playing Fortnite and yelling and screaming at his friends, but we don't hear him.
You do that at the my kid's so sneaky with that. We shut him down. We wake up. He's running around on the phone. It's crazy. This Fortnite, I'll tell you what, they got these kids addicted to that.
Oh, I know. No, listen, they actually give, this is unreal, they actually give scholarships to Fortnite now for college.
Come on.
Forget about tennis or basketball or calculus. They give Fortnite scholarships to college. So I am actually, I'm actually encouraging Gabe to play 18 hours a day.
Well, no, my son, when I asked him years ago, and he's 14 now, what are you going to do? He's going to be a YouTuber. I go, what does that mean?
Yeah.
He goes, I'm going to do videos and get paid. And then I started browsing around, and I said, you know what? I want you to be like that little Chinese kid and make $20 million.
Oh, that kid makes a ton of money, yes.
$20 million for playing with toys, please.
Yep. Gaby's got his own channel. Also, the girl who was on Full House, Lori Loughlin,
right.
Her daughter, very pretty young girl, very pretty, teenager. She also makes millions and millions of dollars. And all she does, and my daughter watches it all the time, so I see it, all she does is go shopping, put on her makeup. I mean, you talk about just complete nonsense. And she makes a ton of money, of money.
If anybody's going to make millions of dollars, it should be you, Sid.
Damn right.
You do a great job. I mean, this show is incredible. You got me hooked to radio, even the Monday through Friday show I love. My wife and I were talking about this last night on my show. We never engaged in morning radio, not since like the early 80s, the mid-80s. And now I'm back into it, thanks to you guys.
Well, we appreciate that. Thank you. And I know you're into the politics and the news. You know what's going on. So we do a nice job of spreading the wealth, as they say. So, Danny, as we wrap up this segment, and again, you can hear Danny every Saturday night Inside the Numbers. Great show, as well as this show, getting ready for conference tournament action. Again, Wednesday in Brooklyn this week, the A-10 tournament. Wednesday downstairs, the Big East tournament. Give everybody the phone number, the website, and the 2 or 3 picks you like today.
All right, the number is 1-800-308-9003. I have a special throughout March Madness, 1-800-308-9003. Website easy to remember, dbwins.com. My best bet of the day, as of now, is South Florida -2, 2.5, depends. I like Philadelphia in the NBA -4.5 to 5. And to answer your question, what would I do in the Houston-Cincy game? I would go over in this one, sir.
Give my best to your beautiful wife, Jamie, and those 2 awesome boys of yours. Enjoy your Sunday, and I'll see you this week a couple of times,
Hey,
Danny. Love you.
I left $5,000 on the table. Did you take it, Sid?
Yeah.
I'm going to need that back tomorrow.
Well,
I'm going to need that. Listen, you guys,
I'll talk to you Wednesday.
I'll gladly pay you back on a Tuesday. Hey, listen, have a good day, sir, and stay dry and have fun.
All right. See you. That's the great Danny B. dbwins.com for your winning picks every day of the week. We'll take a short break. When we get back, he talked about the Indy-Philly game. So did Dr. T. That's a monster game today. The Nets get a big win last night. They're a playoff team as of today. And what really has happened after a great Christmas Day game against Golden State to LeBron James and the Lakers. Brian Geltsaler, Sirius XM, Mr. NBA Channel. He's the best when it comes to the NBA. Brian joins us right after these words.
'77 WABC. Sid Sports Sunday, driven by Ramsey Mazda. Every Sunday, New York sports and more. 77 WABC and the free WABC radio app.
Let's get out here with a W.
Love Brian Geltsaler, one of the best NBA guys in the business, a mainstay regular on this show as he was down in Miami for me for many years. It's on Sirius XM. Hey, Geltz, where can people find you exactly every single day?
You can find me 3 to 4 days a week on Sirius XM NBA Radio. That's Sirius XM Channel 86. You would have got me this morning, 7 to 10 a.m. Eastern Time, Saturday and Sunday mornings. This week, you'll get me both Thursday, Friday, from 10 to 1 Eastern Time on Sirius XM NBA Radio with my partner, Jared Greenberg, there. And then you'll catch me on the weekends, of course, on my own show, Saturday, Sunday, 7 to 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Plus, Wednesday nights, 6:30, 10 before tip on NBA TV. You can see my handsome face on your tube as well, Sid.
Looking great on there. And, of course, you can follow Brian, too, at Hoops Critic. Given to me, the Lakers get blown out again last night at home by the Boston Celtics. I can't believe that on Christmas Day they blew out Golden State. They were a top 4 seed in the West. Had people saying LeBron and that team may have had the best chance back then to beat Golden State. Fast forward 2.5 months, they're a complete disaster. Is this all about the Anthony Davis deal gone bad?
A lot of it is, and a lot of it is about the fact that they built a roster out, besides for the young players, on guys that were all willing to take one-year deals, and they floated us the nonsense, Sid, that essentially what they're doing was getting more ball handlers for LeBron. Well, it wasn't more ball handlers to take burden off LeBron. It was the fact that Rondo was willing to take a one-year deal, Caldwell Pope was willing to take a one-year deal, Stevenson was willing to take a one-year deal, McGee, Beasley. They get that. They used guys as placeholders. There's a danger in using guys as placeholders. They're playing a lot more for a name in the back of the jersey than a name in the front of the jersey. They had a lot of guys that weren't invested. Then this Anthony Davis thing comes along, and your young guys who were kind of invested in what was going on and wanted to develop under LeBron realized they were perceived as disposable pieces. And for LeBron James, it's become very much about do as I say, not as I do. And his effort on the defensive end of the floor was contagious in a very negative way to this team and did not show these young guys how to bear down. And LeBron kind of felt like he could teach without having to show them. And at this stage of the game, it doesn't work that way. In the NBA, man, you want to lead guys. They got to see you doing the same stuff you're preaching. LeBron's kind of gotten away from that, and arrogance has taken over this organization from Magic and Rob Pelinka right down to LeBron and his agent Rich Paul and the agency Clutch Sports, which LeBron's very involved with. That arrogance for the Lakers has put them in a very difficult spot. Very few teams in the league want to deal with their front office right now, and that's going to be a problem when they want to go make a trade. And I think they're going to have a major problem getting Anthony Davis to this team in the offseason. And when it comes to free agents, the high-level top free agents don't want to play with LeBron James. So they're going to have a big struggle to try to build a title contender around LeBron going forward. And we see this season how truly far, far away they are from that.
And how about a coach? I mean, Luke's going to get fired, obviously, but it doesn't.
No doubt.
Wherever LeBron's been, the coaches have been fired more than once. So who the hell wants to coach that team when LeBron does it anyway?
Yeah, well, that's the problem. The hardest job in sports is coaching LeBron James because he's passive aggressive. He's not going to tell you what he wants, but if you don't read his mind and do what he wants, he will not buy in. And if he doesn't buy in, no one else will buy in. And he makes it obvious through body language. Luke was never his choice, but the problem that he has is that Luke has is that it wasn't Magic and Rob Pelinka's choice anyway. Jeannie Buss forced them to keep Luke in this job for this year. I'm not saying a different coach would have had a different outcome. I think Luke Walton's a very good coach, but I think it's really hard when now this is the second year in a row when your roster is loaded with guys that perceive themselves as placeholders. And it's very hard when you don't have management behind you to be able to get placeholders to go hard and to play hard. And if you want to see a team that has placeholders that have done a fantastic job and is qualifying for the playoffs right now, because management is 100% behind the head coach, the Lakers don't have to look further than their co-tenant in the Staples Center with the Los Angeles Clippers, who, again, the same kind of expiring contracts that the Lakers have, but everybody is buying in because they understand that it all starts and ends with Doc Rivers because he's a huge part of that organization and has ownership and management behind him.
Right now, the Clippers are the 7th seed in the West. Hey, obviously you want to make the top four seeds host playoff rounds, round one, and it's very exciting in both conferences. The 4 and the 5 are right neck and neck. I mean, in the East, you got the Bucks 1, Toronto 2. Indiana has held on to that 3 spot. Now Philly has a big game against Indiana today, but when you couple that with the Celtics winning in L.A. against the Lakers last night, the Celtics are just a half a game back of Philly for that coveted 4th spot in the East. Brian, who do you think in the end gets that?
I actually think that 3 is the most important spot there, Sid, that's up for grabs. Listen, you look in the Eastern Conference, all due respect to the Detroit Pistons, who have won 4 in a row and 8 of their last 10 are playing great basketball. There's 5 teams that are really competitive in the Eastern Conference, which means that if you land in that 3 seed, you don't have to play that 5th team. So to me, that is the most important spot. And I actually think, if you ask me right now, Boston's 2 games down in a loss. I think Boston's going to get that 3 seed. I think Boston has really solved a lot of their issues and are moving forward right now in a meaningful way. Listen, give the Pacers a ton of credit for what they've done here, Sid. Nate McMillan's done a great job. They've been able to keep their heads above water after losing Victor Oladipo for the season, but they've feasted on bad competition.
Yes.
That's what they do, and it's a disciplined team, and it's a veteran team, and it's well coached. But you get against premium competition, and they are going going to struggle. Philadelphia's got to get it together, man. Embiid's going to play today. Let's see what happens there, how well he plays. That team is just not a together team right now. Butler's got an eye on the exit. They brought in Tobias Harris has leverage against Butler, and the truth of the matter is they have a point forward playing point guard. And as good as Ben Simmons is, teams have gotten a hip to the fact that he can't shoot, and they have to have Jimmy Butler initiate more offense for them. And Brett Brown's kind of hung up on making people happy, and that's a little bit of an issue in Philly because there's a lot of guys to make happy. So Philly it may have a tough time pulling that chemistry together. In the end, I do think Indiana probably slides back to that 5 seed. We see Boston in 3 and Philly in 4.
Boston, Charles Barkley this week remarking on how miserable Kyrie Irving is. Guy makes $100 million. He's playing in the NBA. What the hell is he so upset about? But he does seem, whether it's Cleveland with LeBron James, now in Boston, what the hell's up Kyrie Irving's ass, wherever he is?
The problem with Kyrie Irving's got a couple problems. First of all, he's hypersensitive. So the fact that Danny Ainge, the first year he was there, accepted overtures on trade calls for him, the first trade deadline Kyrie was there, is something Kyrie hasn't forgotten. He kind of thinks that Brad Stevens has let him twist in the wind as a leader here, and they're expecting him to be a big-time leader. His veterans on his team are expecting him to be a big-time leader. But Jay King of The Athletic wrote a great piece the other day about their flight out to Golden State earlier this week, where they got on the plane, and as opposed to guys putting on their headphones, Kyrie cranked up his own music for everybody to hear and started organizing card games and dice games. So Marcus Smart is a good Uno player. Him and Horford were playing Uno. Kyrie had another card game going on. Marcus Smart started doing a dice game, and all of a sudden these guys were hanging out, laughing, goofing around with each other, and then they walked out in the court and beat Golden State by 30.
Okay.
So Kyrie has no idea how to do this. He wants to be able to do it well. He's down on his organization. He's so down on the media. Kyrie was so turned off. And I'm not sure he's right about this, but I do get it to an extent. He had a conversation in a hallway with Kevin Durant in front of cameras, and they're good friends, and they were laughing together, and everybody wanted to make it like a free agency powwow, which is so not what it is. He can't answer questions about that, even if that is what it is, and he's been upset with the media. It's made him surly. It's made him, and Kyrie's a strange guy in the first place.
Yeah.
He's kind of moody anyway. But the thing is, this is how it is in the NBA, Sid. You want to be a leader on your team. The guys that are going to lead your team are the guys that perform best on the floor. It's the only guys that people are going to follow. So even veterans they have there, Horford and Morrison, Hayward, none of those guys are equipped to lead because none of them are the best player. They were all waiting for Kyrie to do something like he did on the plane, and now they're all in, every single one of them. So I think for Irving here, there's better days ahead for Boston this year. I think short of winning a championship, he's probably going to leave regardless. I think they're not going to offer him max money, and he's expecting max money. So I think that marriage is absolutely leading to a divorce. But what happens this year, I think, is going to be largely positive going forward for Boston. I do think chemistry-wise, these players have kind of figured it out, and that they figure their best bet to go forward for all their individual careers is to play together as a team right now and try to accomplish as much as possible.
60 seconds to go. I do 2 spots every week down in Miami. Andy Slater and the Greek on 940 Wins, and they're always asking me about the Heat. And, of course, I covered the Heat for many years, and I met you down in Miami, Brian. Right now, they're the 8 seed. They'd make the playoffs, but Orlando and Charlotte hot on their heels. They've been hot lately. I don't know. For me, I'd like to see Dwayne Wade, even if they go in and lose, get swept in the first round. I'd love to see Dwayne Wade make the playoffs in his last season. You?
I would too, and I will say this. Dwayne Wade in his last season for the Miami Heat has been the most important veteran on that team for their future. His embracing of his bench role, his enthusiasm for the game, his love for the game, his love for teammates, for other players in the league has become infectious. And Eric Spoelstra made a big move before they went on this streak. They are all in on the 3 young guys, Richardson, Winslow, and Adebayo. They're all 3 in the starting lineup playing big minutes. Winslow's transitioned to be a heck of an NBA point guard at this stage. And I think Miami's trending up. And the thing is, you got guys like, James Johnson and Olynyk and Whiteside that have to come off the bench right now because Wade has been so good about coming off the bench. They can't complain. They can't squawk. No one wants to hear it. No one wants to listen. So Miami's got to go in the right direction with the right priorities here. This is one of the best organizations in the league still, in spite of all these bad contracts and these mistakes they've made in terms of retaining players that maybe they shouldn't have. With that said, there is a decent future ahead of them, and I think they charge hard here into the playoffs. I think I'd be surprised to see Orlando or Charlotte catch them at this point because of how well Miami's playing. So.
Geltz, you're always amazing, Brian. Geltz Saddle. Follow him on Twitter, @HoopsCritic. Check him out, SiriusXM, NBA TV. You really are the best at this, Brian. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the kind words, my friend. And Sid, let's do it again soon, bud.
All right, pal. Love you. Brian Geltzahler, we'll take a short break. When we get back, Major League Baseball opening day, only about 2 weeks away, right? Yankees will host Baltimore, Mets on the road in Washington. Cliff Floyd spent 17 years in the major leagues, including a very memorable 4-year stay with the New York Mets. That 2006 NLCS loss to the St. Louis Cardinals. Him and Beltran both struck out in the ninth inning against Adam Wainwright. We'll talk to my man, Cliffy Floyd, about the Mets, Yankees, and Major League Baseball right after these words.
This is Sid Sports Sunday, driven by Ramsey Mazda every Sunday, 77 WABC.
Back here on Sid Sports Sunday, and we're getting closer and closer now. The start of the regular season, Major League Baseball opening day, just a couple of weeks away, right? We do it this month, this year, March 28th, for both the Mets, the Yankees, and even Bryce Harper with the Philadelphia Phillies. Now, living in Miami all those years and forced to watch the Marlins as a diehard Met fan, one of the guys that I got to know down in South Florida, he's just a tremendous guy and a great ball player. 4 years in Montreal, went on to become a big-time player for the Florida Marlins, and then, of course, had 4 great years with the New York Mets, part of that 2006 team that lost to St. Louis in the NLCS before finishing up in Chicago, Tampa, and San Diego. He is now one of the go-to guys at MLB Network, an analyst. In fact, you can see my friend Cliff Floyd on the MLB Network airing live spring training baseball games every day leading up to opening day. Plus, you can see Cliff on MLB Tonight throughout the season, and he's also doing about 50 Toronto Blue Jay baseball games. So here he is, great ball player, one of my all-time favorites, the great Cliffy Floyd. Good morning, Cliff.
Hey, what's going on, man? That's the best intro I've ever had, I think.
You're the man. Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm good at that. I stole that from Howard Stern. But you're a busy guy. I mean, a guy that played all those years in the majors, played 17 years, 5 or 6 or 7 different places. But now, I talked to you quite a bit down in Florida, Cliff, and you know this game as well as anybody. So between MLB Network and the Blue Jays, it's got to be very cool for you to be still working pretty much daily in Major League Baseball.
Yeah, man, it's actually amazing. I was talking to one of my buddies the other day, and I was like, look, man, who would have thought that when I was done with the game, I would be entrenched in it so much to the point where, you have to stay up to par. I'm constantly every day reading something, getting updates on my phone, but it's been fun. I enjoy every minute, and, when you remove from the game 10 years, you sort of have to start doing homework, man. And I never thought I would have to do homework like this, but I'm telling you, you can't live on what you've done in the game. It just passes you by.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's been a decade, but you can still live on it. Let's talk about, in fact, Cliff, some of the stops that you had after your first couple of years in Montreal. You get to the Marlins, and you were on that 2007 team. I know that was about your last year in Florida. That was a team that Wayne Huizenga, God rest his soul, put together. A ton of superstars on that baseball team, right? I mean, oh, God, I can't even remember all the guys. Sheffield, Bonilla, yourself, and all those pitchers, and went on to beat the Cleveland Indians and win the World Series. What was that like that year in Florida with the Marlins?
It was game-changing, man. It literally sort of woke me up to understand the, responsibilities, accountability, all those things that go along with being an everyday ball player. And I wasn't even playing every day at the time. So if you remember, you just mentioned all those guys. We had Moise Alou, Sheffield, and Devon White, and Niner, Jeff Conine at first base. It wasn't a spot for me. But Dabrowski was willing to deal, and he felt like he needed some more depth. And I sort of learned all the nuances of being not an everyday player, but just a big leaguer, meaning that I had to come to the park. And I didn't know what Jim Leland was going to throw at me. He might have threw, me in left field, right field, first base. So I grew up literally overnight understanding the responsibilities of playing trying to play every day. And then, when I did play, making sure that I gave it all I had because, hell, I didn't know when I was going to start. So I learned a lot. We won the World Series, obviously, at the end of the year, and it made everything worthwhile. But it was still a challenging year as far as my career and just trying to get that balance and consistency.
Well, your career really took off a couple of years later because after you win the World Series with Florida, you go back to Montreal, then you're up in Boston with the Red Sox, and then, of course, now we get to 2003, and you're a New York Met. 4 years with the Mets. That third year, by the way, 2005, you had an amazing statistical great season with the Mets. And again, part of that 2006 team. I know Delgado had a big year that year. Carlos Beltran had a monster year that year. And here you're embroiled in a Game 7. NLCS, St. Louis Cardinals, the right to go to the World Series. Heilman gives up a run. I guess Molina killed you that day. And then we all remember Wainwright striking out Beltran looking. And you were a team that was favored very heavily in that series. We thought you were going to the World Series. I'd have to imagine, for as exciting as 97 was, 2006, Cliff, had to be your biggest disappointment.
Yeah, it was, man. I go back on it every once in a while and think about, the what-ifs and stuff. But team was too talented not to go to the World Series. I just feel like, I don't know. I look back on it numerous times in the situation and how Willie Randolph handled it with Jerry Manuel, as his bench coach, and the decisions they made. I felt like they made the right decisions. I feel like the right guys in the right position. And I know some people say, well, we should have bunted. I felt like, I missed 2 pitches from Adam Wainwright. And had I just went with a simpler approach, I think the outcome would have been different. But I thought right guys in right situation, just the outcome wasn't what we expected.
That's right, because he fanned you and Beltran in that ninth inning. He got you both, and you guys had a great defensive play, an amazing catch to keep that game tied. Reyes had a big year. David Wright had a big year. Heck, even guys like Xavier Nady in right field had a pretty good year, and even Valentin at second base. It was just, you had it all. You had Tommy Glavine. It was a great team.
Yeah, man, we had a solid squad, man. We had depth. We had middle relief. We had the back end covered. Everything we needed, Sid, was literally. It wasn't just on paper, man. We was actually planning it out. And I think as the season went on, the confidence grew. And I think the little things that we felt might have hindered us didn't really hinder us till we faced Adam in that situation, because if you look at that game, he was new at that closer role.
Yes.
And I think that's what made Tony La Russa so great at being able to do some of these old school moves and bringing the guys that we didn't have the scouting report.
No.
Right? We didn't really know what Adam Wainwright see he transitioned from Wainwright to Waino because he was that good and into the rotation. But as a closer, we didn't know that that big hook he had was 12-6. We didn't know if it was a slurvy one. It just said big curveball. But we found out the hard way.
Right.
It was one of the best curveballs the game's seen.
Yeah, no, and he's still getting outs today. One more in your career. We'll get to the modern-day team. I know the year after the Mets, you go home, you go to Chicago. People that don't know this, you were born in Chicago. You're a Chicago kid. That had to be cool. So I know you really enjoyed Florida. You still live there, and you went back home to Chicago. But you've been on record before telling me, Cliff, that all the spots you've been, Boston, 17 years, that you really did enjoy your experience here in New York and Queens with the Mets the most, yes?
Yeah, I did, man. I think it was a combination of understanding, bigger stage, understanding what New York was all about, and then understanding the fans. Yeah, I didn't know the fans. I knew the fans from the other side. Whereas, they come at you, they hated you, they boo you when you was a visitor. But on the flip side, they loved you so much that, and they understood the game so much that it got my juices flowing every night. I knew my responsibilities. I understood when I came to the ballpark at 5 o'clock. Let's kick it in for the 7 o'clock game because these weren't season ticket holders. These people came once a year, and they want you to shine, man.
Mm.
And I took that to heart. I really did, and I played hard. That was just in me, and I think that's how I really sort of fell in a little bit of favor with my fans because I felt like they understood what I was doing every night. I was going to play hard. Now, look, I might have took an offer, or whatever the case may be, but I was leaving it all out there, and I was going to give you, your bang for your buck, man. You came to see me play. I was going to give you everything I had.
And Met fans know that. Met fans know that. Met fans still love you, man. We still love you. By the way, you can catch Cliff Floyd, MLB Tonight, every night, just about MLB Network, along with doing some stuff with the Blue Jays. Now, the Mets, you were there in 2006, NLCS. Since then, they've only really had one good postseason appearance, and that resulted in the loss of the Kansas City Royals a couple of years ago in the World Series. But, Cliffy, a lot of people think this is the year, right? Cano comes here. They get the closer. They bring back Familia. They may have, if they're healthy, I should say, the best starting pitching in baseball. So even in a division where Bryce Harper just went to the Phillies, Cliff, expectations are still very high for the Mets. What do you think realistic expectations are?
Well, I went on record saying 90 plus wins, 94 to be exact. You know what, Sid?
That was before Bryce Harper, though, right? That was before Bryce Harper, right?
Well, it was before. It was really before. When you think about it, it was really before you start seeing all these little injuries this spring.
Yeah.
And I thought when you talk about Jed Lowry and you talk about some of these other injuries that you're seeing, for me, it's important to have the whole lineup and the whole rotation for that to happen. And I look at the Phillies. I look at the Braves. You're gonna have to come with it in this division if you think you're going to be a 90-plus win team. I like the names on paper. I think Brody did a great job this offseason. But if you're going to have guys in and out the lineup, I'll just flip it right over to the Lakers and go, look what they doing. Look. I'm a basketball fan. I'm a sports fan. When I watch these guys play, I'm saying to myself, man, you haven't had a full team the whole season. If you don't have a full team in baseball, especially in a tough division, you ain't going to win. That's the bottom line is.
No, you're 100% right. I mean, I look at the Yankees last year, and Judge missed significant time. Gregorius was banged up all year. Sanchez was out. We know what the Yankees – now, look, Boston was a phenomenal team, and they deservedly won the World Series. But the Yankees were never healthy at all last year, and now they go back into it this year. It's funny, you do these Blue Jay games, Cliff, and Tulowitzki leaves Toronto with a big chip on his shoulder. He's hit a couple of home runs for the Yanks already in spring training. You think Yankee fans are going to get something special out of Troy until – Didi Gregorius comes back?
I'm a realist, right? I'll tell you how it is. I do.
Really?
Last year in TO, I was up there and, talking to Gibby and, going in the clubhouse. This dude loves to play the game. And he is one of those guys that's not going to just play because he's getting paid. He wants to be dope. He wants to be the best on the field. And he knows that he has a few years left in the tank. I think when you talk about the ballpark he's going to play in, the pinstripes that he's always wanted to put on. I mean, we saw him. I know it's been a while, but we saw him watching a game in Yankee Stadium on his day off. Did we not?
Yes, we did.
The man wants to be a Yankee. So I look at this and go, he's going to say, yeah, Didi's coming back, but until then, I need to leave a really good taste in Aaron Boone's mouth, a really good taste in Cashman's mouth, and a really good taste in these fans' mouth. I think he can do it. I think the ballpark is fit for him. I think the whole year off gave him a chance to recharge that battery and get himself back in a position where he can get healthy. And we're seeing the swing path this spring play out to what we've seen Tulo do in the past.
One more, Cliff. You're talking about being a fan of other sports. LeBron is always getting yelled at for basically tampering. Years ago it wasn't LeBron. It was really Dwayne Wade that brought together Bosh and James, not even Pat Riley. But we know that in the NBA, a superstar, they've done it before, they're able to convince their buddies to go play with them in an attempt to win a championship. I'm not sure how often it happens in baseball, but Bryce Harper, as we speak, is in a bit of trouble. According to reports, he's already convinced the best player in baseball, guy better than Harper, Mike Trout with the Angels, he's already convinced him to come to Philly next year when he enters free agency. Two things. First of all, what do you think about that? Should Harper be punished? And secondly, does that happen in baseball, Cliff Floyd, more than we know?
No, I don't think it happens in baseball. But to the first part of it, your question said, why would he? I don't think, do we have tampering rules in the book? I would assume they're there. We've never dealt with this situation, have we?
No.
I mean, I don't think you've heard, many players say anything other than, a couple of things. If a team is dangling them out there or something, you might hear a player chirp a little bit. But as far as this right here, This is news to our sport. And we all know where Trout's from. We all know who he loves. He loves the Eagles. I mean, it makes sense. But, as you know, I think, you know, to answer the second part of your question, I'm telling you, I've said this before. We have never seen this in baseball. How many times have you heard a player go out there on record and say, yo, I'll holler at my boy, you know, I'm trying to get him to, you know, one of the best players in the game to come play with me in Miami. You don't hear that.
Never. No.
Right?
Never
hear it.
No.
So I think it's only fair for us to sit back and see how this plays out, and then maybe Major League Baseball puts it on the forefront as something that players can't do. But if I'm Bryce Harper, hell, I'm going for the best.
Absolutely.
I mean, we've seen in other sports. I watch basketball and I'm going, why do they get to have the luxury? Why do you get to have the luxury in football to say, you know what, I don't want to be on the squad anymore. I'm AB, I'm out. Le'Veon Bell, I'm gone.
Right.
Like, no. Right? You get all these luxuries in other sports. We have never heard in our sport. So I'm anxious to see how this plays out. I'm going to get my popcorn ready. I don't know about you, Bob.
Me too. No, I think it's very, very exciting. Okay, 30 seconds to go. You're going to do this, I'm sure, on MLB Network a bunch before the first pitch, the end of March. It's lame. I know it's lame, Cliffy, but we got to do it. The prediction 2 weeks before the start of opening day, the regular season for baseball. Cliff Floyd, who do you have playing in the Winter Classic?
Oh, man. Look, I'm going with the Yankees. I'm going with the Yankees. I think
really?
the season was great. Yeah.
Now, hold on. Are you doing this? Listen, you're a smart guy. Are you doing this because you want in New York right now?
You know what? And look, I'm going to tell you, if the Mets stay healthy, how about this? How about that? If the Mets stay healthy, Sid, there goes your World Series.
So you're telling me 19 years later we may very well get another Subway Series here in New York?
Sid, I'm telling you. I mean, you mentioned how good the Mets can be.
Yep.
If you can get 2 months out of Cespedes, and I'm not counting zero, but if you can get 2 months out of him, and they later in the season when he's feeling good, and this team is rolling well, and Mickey has a nice little combination with his bench players and everybody in the rotation doing their job, and the back end of the bullpen is dope. Why can't this team be that team? I really believe the Phillies are not ready yet. I believe that they're not ready to catch the ball consistently. I believe the Braves didn't do enough, even though they got Donaldson. And I think the Mets did a really good job. And I gave the Yankees an A+ this offseason as far as Cashman spending money and being able to acquire what he acquired.
Fantastic. New York is loving this right now, by the way. An amazing 17-year career, 4 great years. He's one of the all-time popular New York Mets, just for a 4-year stay in the early 2000s here in Queens, and now, of course, doing an amazing job. Catch him on MLB Network, MLB Tonight, and Toronto fans, you got him for about a third of the season for Blue Jay games. That's really exciting, too.
Yes,
always one of my favorite guys, the great Cliff Floyd. Cliff, thank you for coming on Sid Sports Sunday. Thank you so much.
Man, look here. I've been looking forward to this all day, so appreciate you, my man.
Thank you, Cliff. You too, my man, Cliff Floyd. I love him. We'll take a short break back on Sid Sports Sunday right after these words.
Sometimes your words just hypnotize me, and I just love your flashy ways. Guess that's why they're broken. You're so
Sid Sports Sunday, driven by Ramsey Mazda. 1, 2, 3. 77 WABC. 77 WABC. This is Curtis Sliwa's Super Sports Spectacular. On Sid Sports Sunday, powered by Ramsey Mazda.
I hate saying this. It makes me want to projectile vomit. Cora and the Boston Red Sox are the world champions in baseball. So you figure, you follow the leader, right? Well, believe it or not, the Mets who I hate, Callaway is. He's teaching the players, hit to the opposite field. When they pull a shift on you, go against the shift. Bunt, hit and run. All the basic fundamentals that seem to have been lost in baseball. But what is Aaron Boone doing? He creates new analytical terminology that nobody can understand, but it's still long ball. Long ball, long ball, long ball. Hey, Aaron Boone, it ain't gonna beat the Red Sox because they play traditional baseball. By my
Thank you, Curtis. Always a great job. Curtis Sleeve, of course, he's on noon to 3 every day here. Juliet Huddy joins him every weekday. She does a terrific job. It's a heck of a show today. My dear friend Chris Olivero said in this PPM world, don't look back, look forward. But I'm looking back. I have to mention all the guests that were terrific today. Islander Hall of Famer Denis Potvin, former St. John's head coach, ESPN college basketball analyst Fran Fraschilla, former New York Mets 17-year Major League Baseball veteran Cliff Floyd, also from Sirius XM, the great NBA guy Brian Geldseiler, Danny B, dbwings.com, terrific. Arthur Turovitz, Dr. T, NJDiet.com was great. Also want to thank Bruce Clayton for running the board. Always terrific. Gunzelman, the best executive sports producer in the business. Great. Tomorrow morning at 6, it's Bernie and Sid in the morning. We'll talk to Rich Lowry, National Review, and Gianni Russo from The Godfather. He claims the Kennedy brothers did kill San Giacomo killed Marilyn Monroe. We'll talk to Russo coming up tomorrow. Folks, have yourselves a great Sunday afternoon. Until tomorrow at 6, for everybody on Sid Sports Sunday. Peace!